Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about alignment, IRL alignment, and how it affects art, and how Dungeons & Dragons manages its incredibly diverse world of intellectual property connections. And we're going to talk about all this in context to Ezra Miller's 2023 The Flash. So, 2023, The Flash is an incredible film. It's a historical film because basically James Gunn has just come into the DC cinematic universe, and there was some hope, and people were like, "Hey, we have this possibility that he'll take this garbage platform that has been used to just mix intellectual properties with absolutely no connection to each other, not even an insulting level of laziness and just an insulting level of laziness and hatred, right? It's very clear when you look at the DC cinematic universe. It looks to me, in my humble opinion, that DC, owned by Warner Brothers, has a whole bunch of executives. These executives absolutely despise comic books movies, and they don't read any of the source material. And they're like, listen, we bought these incredibly valuable characters, Superman and Batman. We have the right to make these films. And what we're going to use that for is we could use it to make money, and we could, by making interconnected worlds in a way that we know works, because Marvel's shown it works, and they have a multi-billion-dollar platform, and it's powerful, and their stories are interconnected, and their writers know each other, and there's one central point. Everything is cohesive. Now, and that cohesion goes across companies. Like, there's canon discussions in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And so not only does it extend to the live-action Marvel Cinematic Universe, it even connects the animated material to the live-action Marvel Cinematic Universe, and freely mixes live-action film into the animated material, and and it's all connected, and it's all beautiful. And so Marvel is saying, hey, we have these incredibly valuable characters. Let's deliver a powerful narrative for our fans. Let's be respectful to our fans. Let's not insult them. And let's work hard, right? And DC's like, hey, we have these incredibly valuable characters. Let's all, go golf on Thursday and Friday, work, 4 hours, 3 days a week, and just serve up utter pablum, because these comic book fans will eat whatever we serve up. And that has been the case with DC Cinematic Universe. They were right. The DC executives, none of them had to work hard. None of them had to care about any of the material. And they still made billions. Even Aquaman made $1 billion, right? That's incredible, right? And the stories, the integration of the world is utter garbage and an absolute insult to anyone who ever read a comic, a DC comic, a Superman comic or a Batman comic. And those executives are like, let's use the gravitas and the value of these characters to work a 3-day week every week, be lazy, and be absolutely insulting. Let's just spit in their face every single possible, Joker. Oh, they made $1 billion. It's going to get a sequel. Does it connect to anything in the DC? Not a single thing. Doesn't, that Batman is a different Batman. They don't connect in any way. We don't care that they don't connect. We're not even going to pretend it's logical, right? And they just serve up utter garbage left and right? And then they were like, oh my gosh. And then this level of laziness, right? This level of insult, right? This level of, I'm an intellectual, you are an unread, unwashed, you are the unread, unwashed masses, and I can literally serve you anything because you don't know any better. I can feed you garbage, right? And so what they did was they took Ezra Miller, right? And Ezra Miller, Grace Randolph talked for 6 months straight and was like, this just happened with Ezra Miller. This just happened with Ezra Miller. This just happened with Ezra Miller. Coming up to The Flash. And if you listen to Grace Randolph's coverage about Ezra Miller, it looked very clearly like Ezra Miller was on a crime spree. I'm not saying he was, but I'm saying it really looked that way from looking from the inside, from the outside in, right? And so it would have been hard, and the deck executives are like, oh, do we face replace him? This has been done in multiple movies already. We can face replace him. and say, you guys don't have to watch a villain on screen, right? Like this person has, has innumerable number of very problematic behaviors, right? So it's really interesting, and the executives are like, nope, just serve it up. We don't care. And we understand Jonathan Majors was just taken out of every single series he was ever in for a small fraction of what Ezra Miller has done over the last 6 months, in my humble opinion, right? And they're like, no. Man, I'm not coming into work on Thursday or Friday. I got golf games scheduled. Just release the film, right? And for a long time, this worked, right? Aquaman made $1 billion, right? They got away with this for a long time, and they just served utter garbage to DC comic fans, and they ate whatever came up. And I was part of it. I knew Black Adam was going to be a hot mess. I went to see that movie, right? And they spoon-fed me garbage, and I ate it. And it's insulting, it's frustrating, it's really bad, right? It's a bad situation, right? So it was really upsetting and galling, and it's just a bad situation, right? But finally, the chickens come home to roost. And The Flash had a $55 million opening, which is so shockingly bad that it threatens James Gunn, and it says James Gunn had an opportunity. He could have cleaned the slate and said, I'm gonna make it fresh for you. I'm gonna make it good for you. I'm gonna tear everything out of the MCU, out of the DC Cinematic Universe, and build it from the ground up. And he didn't. He's like, listen, my wife's working in Peacemaker. I'm not gonna, that's a, well, that could be half $500,000 check. I'm not gonna get rid of that so that the whole world can have good Batman and Superman movies. No, I'll just do the easy thing. I'll just freely mix and keep some of the old, put in some of the new, and not let anybody know, what's happening. And let's keep this garbage burning platform as what we build on, right? Same thing. He's like, oh, hey, I met this guy, Bob. He told me I don't even have to come in on Thursday or Friday. I can insult every single fan. I could be lazy. And I could just, I could hire villains. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. DC fans will eat whatever we serve them. Well, the chickens have come home to roost, right? And $55 million is an abominable opening for this. It should have been a $250 million opening weekend, 5 times that much, right? So what does all this mean for Dungeons & Dragons? So one, Dungeons & Dragons has to learn from this that as they expand Dungeons & Dragons into multiple intellectual properties and connect it with literally 1,000 worlds, right? They need to be careful. They need guys like James Wyatt who are going to be very, very careful to build a canon that will fit everything. James Wyatt built one of the most inclusive canon mechanisms ever designed. It's how and it was put right into Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. And basically, it talked in the beginning of this dragon egg that exploded into all these different shards, and each shard is a different sliver of reality. It was a narrative reason why, right? Why Spider-Man and Batman and Elminster and Ariana Grande are all have a hope and a possibility of either already being D&D canon or being D&D canon in the future, right? And so guys like James Wyatt understand this, and they think deeply about this, and they also have a respect for the fandom, right? They're like, hey, we want to build something meaningful for you. We want to connect these things in a logical way, and we're not going to take off Thursday and Friday. We're going to actually work a 5-day week, just like you do, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons, I feel, is very closely modeling its world building off of Marvel, and very carefully keeping a 10-foot pole distance between itself and what the DC Cinematic Universe is doing. The other thing is, Dungeons & Dragons has had this conversation for decades. Should we remove alignment? And Dungeons & Dragons has made their decision very recently. Like Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen shouted, anybody who thinks that Dungeons & Dragons is going to be taken out of that alignment is going to be taken out of Dungeons & Dragons, you're absolutely wrong. Here's Dungeons & Dragons brought back from an older version. Here's a brand new relaunch of Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and we want you to know alignment is here to stay in Dungeons & Dragons, and they have placed alignment in Dungeons & Dragons, and they are keeping alignment in Dungeons & Dragons. And that is a echo of our real world. We are every day in different ways. We are saying, does alignment matter in IRL? Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, pure evil, like chaotic evil, clearly evil alignment. I'm not saying that, he's saying that, right? Just read Art of the Deal. He says, I had people that I do business, in Art of the Deal, 15 years before he became president. He wrote it and he said, listen, everybody, I want you to know what kind of man I am. I bring in business partners and I set them in a room and I sit for 4 hours drinking coffee and eating cookies and telling them I'm not available when I'm literally 2 conferences away. I lie to people constantly as a tool. I'm evil. Evil. Know it. Right? Alignment is real. Donald Trump is it. And in politics, the majority of the Republican Party are like, we don't care about alignment. For us, alignment is like tails of the valiant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist, right? So you, as a person, you have to choose. Does IRL matter in real life? Are you going to pretend that evil people are normal people? They're not, right? They're evil, right? And so you have to say, am I going to draw these lines? And boy, I'll tell you right now, I think the world just said, they looked at Ezra Miller and he said, nope, not buying it. And I'm not willing to say Ezra Miller is evil, but I'll say this. I don't think he's in the good alignment, that's for sure. He might be a neutral, right? And the whole world's like, we're not having it. We're not going to take art from villains. And that's a shock to me. I will say this right now. That is very shocking to me, right? Because the Republican Party is right now saying we're going to divorce alignment from politics, but America is saying we absolutely refuse to divorce alignment from art. We want art from good people, right? And that's incredibly, actually, they're saying, if we know you are neutral or evil, we will not show up for your film. And they did. And I will tell you, I was incredibly tempted to go see The Flash, right? Because it has the 1980s Batman, right? But I think it's going to be easy for me to skip it. And at this point, because the FOMO has gone away, right? And so I'm really proud of Dungeons & Dragons for making the right choices, for keeping alignment in Dungeons & Dragons so that it can model American choice, that we keep alignment in some forms of our IRL life, which is art. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get into the comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing and have a wonderful millennium.